but he's big and strong. Unusual for a Swiss. He doesn't really come from the mountains. He comes from right outside of the city of Zurich.
That's right. From the German-speaking part of Switzerland, Peter Mueller.
Oh, and he had some trouble right there. They don't consider him too nifty in the turns, as we just saw. But boy, I'll tell you, when he gets down on those flats, he can really go.
Looks like we'll have two Peter Muellers in the Olympic Games. There's his intermediate time, 37.99. Quite good. Because we have this Peter Mueller, then we have Pete Mueller, the fine American speed skater. Won a gold medal back in '76, and he's still at it.
Got his hands behind him, got up a little bit, caught a little air right there. Still going very well. Now this is where he's really good. This is where Mueller can use that size to his advantage. A little more weight on his skis. He can absorb all those little bumps with his legs, kind of like little shark absorbers.
Okay, now the fastest intermediate time on the left is still that of Leonard Stock. He doesn't lead the race, but he has the fastest intermediate time. And there, 1:12.65. That is very, very competitive.
That's going to be tough, too, because he'll gain even more in the lower part of the course. That's where his size will come in. He got a little bit sideways going off that bump. I don't think he lost much time, though.
The lead time he's after, remember, is the time of Wirnsberger. Wirnsberger, the leader in the race from Austria. Canadians and the Austrians have been dominating the race so far, but now Switzerland moving into the picture, and very strong at that. Here he comes to the line at 1:42.91 by 3/100ths of a second. He fails to catch Wirnsberger. But he's in a very, very strong second position. Peter Mueller.
Can't get much closer than that.
There is the current leader, Peter Wirnsberger, the young Austrian. Coming out of the starting gate, bursting out of there is another Swiss, Tony Bergler. He's just 21 years old and stands third on the season-long competition for the downhill championship.
Well, you know, he won a race at Crown Montana earlier in the season, but a lot of the Europeans kind of discounted this. Oh, it's flat, it doesn't mean much, and they'd had a snowstorm, so they said this was a fluke. But Bergler's been doing pretty well since then.
He really came on the scene last year in the Swiss National Championships when he suddenly took a silver medal.
Like a lot of the Swiss downhill racers, like Mueller, here we see Bergler. He's big and strong, kind of like the mountains of Switzerland. They can kind of let him roll down and use those rolls.
38.38, not particularly good on that first checkpoint.
Oh, he almost went off the course up there.
Sure did, sure did.
Whew. As again, like Mueller, he's not all that nifty in the turns, but when he gets down on these flats, he is really strong. Big, strong, tough, a lot of endurance.
Top to bottom coverage, once again with 17 cameras of this course that will be used for the Olympic Games next year in Lake Placid. Time on the left to beat from Leonard Stock, the intermediate time, 1:13.13. That's good. That's good. Not great, but good.
It is good, Jim. And once again, we might mention that the racers and the coaches really do think highly of this course here. They think it's a good one and a tough one.
Certainly proving to be so today. Even under these very sunny, warm conditions, it's very fast. A good look at Bergler now. In profile, he speeds past our camera. 1:42.88, the time to beat. The time of Wirnsberger. And it's 1:43.41. That puts him into sixth place, at least for the moment, just ahead of Ken Reed of Canada. Well, there he is, Tony Bergler of Switzerland from Reichenbach. There is the leader once again, Peter Wirnsberger, talking to some of the press, I believe, over the hay bales right now. And another interesting ABC. Now, really. The standings, Wirnsberger of Austria, then Mueller the Swiss, the Canadian Murray, Stock and Spieth.
Trails or countryside as far as you can see. Camping and backpacking.
Been in the top 10 only twice this season. Can he pull one out as the Olympics near us again?
Well, you know, Jim, I feel really kind of badly for Klammer. He's a great champion, and the pressure of Austria has been on him. But, you know, he's kind of forgotten how he got there. He's doubting himself a little bit right now, and he, frankly, is not skiing very well. He hasn't all year. Look at him in that turn. He's having trouble getting into the turns right here.
Really doesn't look like the same man, does he?
Remember when we used to say Klammer just looks for speed? Look at that. He's sideways right in the middle of a turn.
This is the man who's won 23 World Cup races in his 7-year career. Won 8 of them in 1975, 6 each in 76 and 77, but not the same today.
You know, once you lose a little bit of confidence, particularly when you're a downhill ski racer, it kind of kind of thickens after that. One thing leads to the other, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's what's happened for Clymer all year. In the last few races, he hasn't even been in the top 20.
Was it 2 years ago, his younger brother was seriously injured in the ski race? Do you think psychologically that could have affected him at all?
Well, it had to have an effect. His brother was paralyzed, of course. He sees him at his farm all the time. But I think really it's kind of the pressure built on him, and they expected him to win every single race. He couldn't win every single race. He's not doing very well right here, as we can see. Look at that.
Not good at all. 1:13.93, way behind that still fastest intermediate time of Leonard Stock. Stock fourth in the race, remember, but still with the fastest intermediate time. If you wonder why so many of the top racers have these early numbers, well, it's very simple. They have earned them. The people who start with the 15 lowest numbers have earned the points that give them those numbers.
Something else, Jim. Clymer came over here a week earlier than all the other Austrians just to get some extra practice. It was a very controversial move.
Well, he's not going to be among the leaders this time. 1:45.43 puts him into 13th place at the moment, and others could still move ahead of him. Franz Clymer. Well, at age 25, he certainly shouldn't be too old, so maybe he can psychologically get it all together by next year in the Olympic Games. Be a tough job, though. Okay, the standings at the moment showing Wirnsberger the leader, Mueller second from Switzerland, Murray the Canadian third, then Stock and Spieth from Austria. And here comes a very talented young Italian, Leonardo David. At the age of 18, he is 7th overall in the standings for the World Cup.
And you know, he's really best in slalom and giant slalom. He was the Europa Cup champion. That's for young boys on the European Cup. This is his first year on the World Cup, and he's kind of been the young sensation so far.
He is not primarily a downhiller, however. He's a specialist, really, in GS and in slalom.
Oh, and he has some trouble right there. Almost went right off the course. But he is good in the turns. The Italians are trying to get their downhillers to come on a little bit more. They haven't had a very good downhill team. So they're trying to get ready, and they're bringing all these young boys in, kind of pushing them into these downhills, see if they can't come up a little bit. David is a good talent.
Just last month in Oslo, he beat Ingemar Stenmark and Phil Mayer for his first World Cup win. That was in a slalom, however.
And that's no easy task.
Not under any conditions on any day. Young David, he's from the part of Italy where they speak a lot of French, right near the French border, near Cervinia. Intermediate time, we would not expect to be close to the leaders. 1:12.51 to beat, and there you see way past that. 1:15.34. Just getting experience really in the downhill, I guess, huh?
Well, you got to consider, experiences for sure, but he also went almost completely out of the course in the upper part.
Well, you learn quickly that way. Leonardo David of Italy.
One way to learn about downhill, that's get in there and run them. Great education.
Headed for the finish now is the young teenager from Italy. See, he's already passed the time to beat. Oh, look out, he's down with the final schuss, sliding under the finish line, and he does get a time, actually, of 1:49.29. Looks like he's all right, getting up on his skis. Wasn't that strange? It was almost on the straightaway coming down in there, Bob, off that last bump. Look.
You can see in slow motion as he comes down right through here. Just kind of had a little lack of concentration. Might have looked down, caught an edge. Snow is quite soft down here. It's warmed up an awful lot.
Leonardo David. There he is, moving into the press corral there. Looks to be okay. Back up at the top of the hill, we have another Italian racer. This is Giuliano Giardini, teammate of the young man who just fell. He's only 19, is Giardini.
Well, as we were saying, the Italians about 3 years ago were dominating the sport of skiing with Piero Gross, with Gustavo Terni. All of a sudden, things didn't go so well. Trouble right off.
There he goes. Whew, look out. He's really moving fast. Out of control now, slowing down. There you see him.
I was starting to say, Jim, that they bring a lot of these young guys on, and they're going to learn the hard way sometimes. Because, you know, you got to get into competition, and downhill, that's the only way you can do it.
Giuliano, something has happened to David. We saw him standing there. Now he's down on the ground, being ministered to, and people look very concerned around him there, Bob. He just suddenly, apparently, fell and does not look to be conscious. They're patting his face there, as you can see. I can't imagine what could have happened. You saw the fall. It did not look like a particularly bad fall. Did not hit on the top of his head. Seemed to hit on his back mostly. Slid under the finish line. Well, we'll be right back.
You give a man a couple of days to himself and a black
the top of the hill, we have another Italian racer. This is Giuliano Giardini, teammate of the young man who just fell. He's only 19, is Giardini.
Well, as we were saying, the Italians about 3 years ago were dominating the sport of skiing with Piero Gross, with Gustavo Terni. All of a sudden, things didn't go so well. Trouble right on.
There he goes. Whew, look out. He's really moving fast. Out of control now, slowing down. There you see him.
I was starting to say, Jim, that they bring a lot of these young guys on, and they're going to learn the hard way sometimes, because, you know, you got to get into competition, and downhill, that's the only way you can do it.
Giuliano, something has happened to David. We saw him standing there. Now he's down on the ground being ministered to, and people look very concerned around him there, Bob. He just suddenly, apparently, fell and does not look to be conscious. They're patting his face there, as you can see. I can't imagine what could have happened. You saw the fall. It did not look like a particularly bad fall. Did not hit on the top of his head. Seemed to hit on his back mostly. Slid under the finish line. Well, we'll be right back.
You give a man a couple of days to himself and a block.
Carl Anderson. He has the best downhill finish of any American so far this season. That was an 8th in Garmisch in late January. He fell several times in the early season, but seems to have it much more together now.
Yes, he does. You know, he had an 8th in Garmisch, but, you know, the 30 on his bib indicates that that's about where he's ranked in downhill, and it's been soft here, and it's starting, as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit ruddy and chattery. It's going to be even tougher for him.
Carl, a sturdily built young man, 5 feet 9, 175. There you can see the ruts, huh?
You can see it right in there.
Oof.
He's having trouble. His tips come up in his face. You can see those little ruts on the course. It's getting a lot warmer. The sun is really beating right down on the course right now.
Well, you can hear a lot of Americans yelping for him as he goes by. 38.75. That's not among the leading times, certainly. And under these conditions, you can't expect it.
Carl had a fall in training a couple days ago, so he's kind of just really getting back on his skis.
They told me he hurt his knee a little bit on that one. Could be bothering him some. But he's looking pretty good.
Those tips keep flying up in his face. That's not a good idea. That's wind resistance too, you know.
You're getting an intermediate time on him. He won't be anywhere near that time of stocks that is held up all day long as the lead intermediate time. 1:13.52, though. He picked up a little speed between that first checkpoint and that intermediate time.
He had a little trouble holding his balance through there. Couldn't quite stay in his tuck. Seems to be getting on his skis now. The Americans have not particularly been good in downhill. It's a little tough because there aren't that many downhill courses here for them to train on in the United States. They have to go to Europe for training.
Of course, later on Wide World, we'll be seeing in the giant slalom Phil Mayer, who is very, very competitive in that aspect of ski racing. Lead time on the left end for Carl Anderson, 1:44.63. Young man who was captain of the football specialty teams in high school up there in Green, learned to ski on the mountain up there near his Green, Maine home. Let's take a look then at the final standings. It is all over now. Wirnsberger of Austria, the winner, 1:42.88 his time, 3/100ths of a second better than Peter Mueller of Switzerland. Dave Murray of Canada, third, followed by Leonard Stock and Ulrich Spies of Austria. As for Carl Anderson there, he finishes 14th in the men's World Cup downhill. Still to come once again will be the giant slalom. Ingemar Stenmark and Phil Mayer going at it again. That then is the story from here now, as the lift is even stopped.